Chapter 4, narrated by Roses Are Red. So I sat on my bed and coughed while I listened to my mom making a frantic call to our shrink's emergency line, followed quickly by another equally hysterical call that would activate the dreaded People of Faith prayer tree. Within 30 minutes, our house would begin to fill up with fat women and their beady-eyed pedophile husbands. They'd call me out to the family room. My mark would be considered a really big and embarrassing problem, so they'd probably anoint me with some crap that was sure to clog my pores and give me cyclops-sized zits before laying their hands on me and praying. They'd ask God to help me stop being such an awful teenager and a problem to my parents. Oh, and the little matter of my mark needed to be cleared up too. If only it were that simple. I'd gladly make a deal with God to be a good kid versus changing schools and species. I'd even take the geometry test. Well, okay, maybe not the geometry test, but still, it's not like I'd ask to become a freak. This whole thing meant I was going to have to leave, to start my life over somewhere I'd be the new kid, somewhere I didn't have any friends. I blinked hard, focusing myself not to cry. School was the only place I really felt at home anymore. My friends were my only family. I balled up my fist and squidged my face up to keep from crying. One step at a time. I just take this one step at a time. No way I was going to deal with the clones of my step-loser on top of everything else. And as if the People of Faith weren't bad enough, the horrid prayer session would be followed by an equally annoying session with Dr. Asher. He'd ask me a lot of questions about how this and that made me feel. And then he'd babble on and on about teenage anger and aunts being normal, but that only I could choose how it would have an impact on my life, blah, blah. And since this was an emergency, he'd probably want me to draw something that represented my inner child or whatever. I definitely had to get out of there. Good thing I've always been the bad kid and was well prepared for a situation like this. Okay, I wasn't exactly thinking about escaping my house so I could run off and join the vampires when I put the spare key to my car under the flower pot outside my window. I was just considering that I might want to sneak out and go to Kayla's house. Or if I really wanted to be bad, I might meet Heath at the park and make out. But then Heath started drinking and I started to change into a vampire. Sometimes life doesn't make any sense. I grabbed my backpack, opened my window, and with an ease that said more about my sinful nature than the step-loser's boring lectures, I popped out my window screen. I put on my sunglasses and peeked out. It was only 4:30 or so and not dark yet, so I was really glad that our privacy fence hid me from our totally nosy neighbors. On this side of the house, the only other windows were to my sister's room, and she should still be at cheerleading practice. Hell must truly be freezing over, because for once I was sincerely glad my sister's world revolved around what she called the sport of cheer. I dropped my backpack out first and then slowly followed it out the window, being careful not even to make a small oof noise when I landed on the grass. I paused there for way too many minutes, burying my face in my arms to muffle my horrible cough. Then I bent over and lifted up the edge of the pot that held the lavender plant Grandma Redbird had given me, and let my fingers find the hard metal of the key where it nestled against the smushed grass. The gate didn't even squeak when I cracked it open and inched out like one of Charlie's angels. My cute bug was sitting there where she always sat, right in front of the third door to our 3-car garage. The step-loser wouldn't let me park her inside because he said the lawnmower was more important. More important than a vintage VW? How? That didn't even make sense. Jeez, I sounded just like a guy. Since when did I care about the vintageness of my bug? I must really be changing. I looked both ways. Nothing. I sprinted for my bug, jumped in, put it in neutral, and was truly thankful that our driveway was ridiculously steep when my wonderful car rolled smoothly and silently into the street. From there it was east to start it and zip out of the neighborhood of big expensive houses. I didn't even glance in my rearview mirror. I did reach over and turn off my cell phone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. No, that wasn't exactly true. There was one person I really wanted to talk to. She was the one person in the world who I was positive wouldn't look at my mark and think I was a monster or a freak or a really awful person. Like my bug could read my mind, it seemed to turn all by itself onto the highway that led to Muskogee Turnpike, and eventually to the most wonderful place in this world, my Grandma Redbird's lavender farm. Unlike the drive from school to home, the hour-and-a-half trip to Grandma Redburn's farm seemed to take forever. By the time I pulled off the two-lane highway onto the hard-packed dirt road that led to Grandma's place, my body ached even worse than it did the time they hired the crazy new gym teacher who thought we should do insane weight circuits while she cracked her whip at us and crackled. Okay, so maybe she didn't have a whip, but still, my muscles hurt like hell. It was almost 6 o'clock and the sun was finally starting to set, but my eyes still stung. Actually, even the fading sunlight made my skin feel tingly and weird. It made me glad that it was the end of October and it had finally turned cool enough for me to wear my Borg Invasion 40 hoodie. Sure, it was a Star Trek, The Next Generation ride in Vegas, and sadly, I am on occasion a total Star Trek nerd, which thankfully covered most of my skin. Before I got out of my bug, I dug around in the back seat until I found my old OSU trucker's hat and pulled it down on my head so that my face was out of the sun. My grandma's house sat between two lavender fields and was shaded by huge old oaks. It was built in 1942 of raw Oklahoma stone, with a comfortable porch and unusually big windows. I loved this house. Just climbing the little wooden stairs that led to the porch made me feel better, safe. Then I saw the note taped on the outside of the door. It was easy to recognize Grandma Redbird's pretty handwriting. I'm on the bluffs collecting wildflowers. I touched the soft lavender-scented paper. She always knew when I was coming for a visit. When I was a kid, I used to think it was weird, but as I got older, I appreciated the extra scent she had. All my life, I've known that no matter what, I could count on Grandma Redburn. During those awful first months after Mom married John, I think I would have shriveled up and died if I hadn't been able to escape every weekend to Grandma's house. For a second, I considered going inside. Grandma never locked her doors, and waiting for her, but I needed to see her, to have her hug me and tell me what I had wanted Mom to say. Don't be scared. It'll be okay. We'll make it be okay. So instead of going inside, I found the little deer path at the edge of the northernmost lavender field that would lead to the bluffs. And I followed it, letting my fingertips trail over the tops of the closest plants so that as I walked they released their scent, silvery scent into the air all around me like they were welcoming me home. It felt like years since I'd been here, even though I knew it had only been 4 weeks. John didn't like Grandma. He thought she was weird. I'd even overheard him tell Mom that Grandma was a witch and going to hell. He's such an ass. Then an amazing thought hit me, and I came to a complete stop. My parents no longer controlled what I did. I wasn't going to live with them ever again. John couldn't tell me what to do anymore. Whoa, how awesome. So awesome that it sent me into a spasm of coughing that made me wrap my arms around myself like I was trying to hold my chest together. I needed to find Grandma Redbird, and I needed to find her now.